For 35 years, I tried to change the relationship with my mother, and I refused to put my hand up because I thought I knew best. I knew how to do this. And it was the moment that I actually put my hand up and thought, I can't do this anymore alone. There's got to be someone out there who can help me. And the moment I did that, my life changed. So that's just beautiful. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I hope the listeners today, if ask.
Yeah, and it's just like the old Proverbs. The old proverb says, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yeah.
Now, I'm going to say one more thing on this whole deal about asking for help, because it just occurred to me, and I had almost forgotten it.
Yeah.
Is sometimes we ask for help, and we're looking for somebody to show up and help us, and sometimes we get tripped up because the person who shows up doesn't look like the person we were expecting to show up. Sometimes the best teacher is a garbage man, or a police officer, or a woman who takes your lunch order. Sometimes you will run into these people at odd times in your life, and they will have the answer, and maybe they will even offer you the answer. The question is, are you willing to accept it from somebody who doesn't look like a teacher or a guru?
Yeah, that's so true. So we've got to really keep our eyes open, and that's the awareness, isn't it?
We have to keep our eyes and our heart open to look for those people who are going to teach us the important lessons.
Thank you for that, Max. Yeah, absolutely. That's so important, and it's not easy to do. It's really not easy to do, but it's one of the most worthwhile things.
It's very hard, and it takes practice. And I will openly admit I have the advantage because I had 20 years of life of people telling me it was okay. Most people that we're sharing this with, they're gonna try to go from 0 to 60 on asking for help, and it's probably not going to work right the first few times. But just start by asking for little things. Start by asking a neighbor if you're really stuck. Start by asking somebody if you can do something for them.
Yeah, that's a good way to start. Yeah, thank you, Max. So I love this next bit we're going to come on to. Always seek the positive in life. And finding the good is easy. So it's really just like finding anything else. So you've got to decide that it must be somewhere, and you just keep looking until you find it. So this is your focus then, to find the good in everything. Is it, Max?
Yeah. And, not every time you do it, or, sometimes you do it, you're not going to succeed. And sometimes it's going to be harder than others. There have been occasions where I've had to actually sit down and make a list and think about it and try to come up with things that were positive. But it's another one of those things. The first time I said that out loud, I said, finding the positive is like looking for the TV remote, because we've all lost the TV remote. We know that if we just keep looking for it, sooner or later, we are going to find it.
Yeah.
And then I thought of something else. I said, I said to myself, if we don't find it after a while, often we will decide to just watch whatever is on.
Yeah.
If you've ever been in that situation, you will find yourself deciding that you like whatever is already on. I mean, I once watched The First Wives Club and didn't like it for the first 20 minutes, but eventually it became one of my favorite movies because I just didn't have the remote. Well, when you're blind, a lot of times those remotes aren't exactly easy to figure out. So sometimes your choices are changing the channel and maybe finding something better, or changing the channel and turning the TV off or knocking the cable out. So something, but you can decide, and we all make decisions. Unfortunately, most of the time we decide to find the negative. We decide to be unhappy as opposed to deciding to find the positive. And a lot of times it does require making a list. One of my worst experiences ever was when I sold a carousel for a man up in Vermont. It was a $250,000 carousel used. It was a double-decker carousel, and I sold it through my online network in about 30 minutes. We had the buyer, and within 45 to 50 days, the carousel was in Australia being set up for the first time.
Wow.
So I was very, very proud of that. The disappointing part came when I tried to get paid. And the $25,000 that I was promised was not forthcoming.
Wow.
And and no matter what I did, I was unable to get even partial payment. So this was a very bad day. I'd already started thinking about how I was going to spend the money.
Oh,
And
so you delivered this and without any payment?
yeah, I did not get paid. Yeah,
Wow.
yeah. And so I started, but I sat down and said, okay, let's see. I had already written a post saying that I sold it. So because of that, my website got more traffic, and I actually had people emailing me wanting to know, well, you sold that ride. Could you find this for me? So I received quite a few new clients out of that sale where I didn't get paid. I wrote about the sale, including a photo to Mutual of Omaha's thing. They were doing a promotion called Aha Moments. And they posted the photo and they reposted my story, and they gave me a $100 gift card to show their appreciation for it. And I bought some new clothes.
Oh, beautiful.
Which were the first new clothes I had bought since losing all the weight after having the gastric surgery. So at that time, everything I owned had a drawstring in it. I did not have any even halfway nice clothes. So I spent $100 on Amazon, and that was another thing. I had to figure out Amazon, and I was delighted when what I thought I ordered was what I actually ordered, and it fit when I got it.
Wow.
Everybody said it looked great. So, I just kept going from there. Started making a list of things that were positive, and sometimes it is hard. Sometimes you've got to cry for a few minutes before you can make that list.
Yeah.
But I honestly believe that if we will just decide, if we will make our minds up that there is something good in every experience, event, every person that we meet, we will find it. But again, it's just like asking for help. It's just like taking small steps every day. It's like everything else that I do and that other people who are even much better at it than I am, it's not easy in the beginning. And I wish people would stop saying it's easy. I hope I've made it clear that it isn't easy. You have to start small and work your way up. But you have to start and decide you're going to be happy, decide that there are things you can be grateful for. And, that kind of transitions into when things do happen that go well, be sure to take the time to celebrate the successes, because it can be a long time between wins. And if we don't celebrate those small successes between the big wins, usually we're not going to be able to sustain ourselves to get to those more important events that, where you actually plan a celebration type of thing.
Yeah, that's so true. So true. Thank you for sharing that story, Max. And I hope you listeners, really take that on board, that what Max went through there, this sale that he was so hoping for, and saw the positive in it. And look what came from that person who, for whatever reason, decided that they could have it for free. I mean, I don't know where that comes from. But Max was able to turn that around, and look what came from that.
Yeah, and I hate to mention this because it kind of shows that I'm not perfect, but maybe that's a good reason to mention it.
I don't know anyone who is, Max.
Well, I found out a little while later that the fellow who stiffed me on the commission for that sale, that his car dealership was in financial trouble, and that he had all his records seized by the Internal Revenue Service,
right?
And that he was headed towards a big fat audit. And while my dad always told me, Max, never root for people for bad things to happen to people. Let's just say that a little part of me wasn't upset that he was going through hard times.
Yeah. I think we'd all feel along those lines, Max. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Well, we all fail. Life is like any other video game. Nobody wins, and if you're lucky, you get to set the reset button tomorrow morning and try over.
Yeah, that's what it is. That's what it is. Start again. You can start again. And that brings us to fear. Because, fear is always with us. It doesn't matter who we are or where we are in life. Fear, there is some sort of fear there. And we have to ask what scares, this is a question to ask yourself. What scares you more? The fear of missing out or the fear of looking foolish? And Max likes to say that life really isn't the Olympics, because they don't award style points. So, what scares us more? That is the question to ask, isn't it?
Yeah, because fear is always with us. And to me, one of the best examples of this in my own life is when it comes to publishing. I mentioned earlier that I've released my third book. And the one thing that I find when I talk to other authors and from my own experience is it doesn't matter how many times you've published. It doesn't matter how successful or unsuccessful your books may have been when you send them off to Amazon or to wherever you're publishing through. It never gets easier. I mean, you get better at dealing with it. You don't let the fear grab hold of you and hang on to you as long, but it's always going to be there. And I love this line from an old John Wayne movie. I think it was The Flying Leathernecks. I'm not 100% sure on the movie. But in the movie, the young pilot asked John Wayne, "Do you still get nervous when you take off?" And John Wayne's character says, "Son, if you ever pull that throttle back and your mouth doesn't get dry, then it's time to hang up your wings." So, and so I think a lot of people feel like, well, after I post, 10 or 12 blog posts, I won't worry about my content so much. Or after I record 5 or 10 podcast episodes, I won't be so nervous about, does the audience like me? Will they want to hear what I have to say? And really, the fear never goes away. You just find better ways of dealing with it. You get more experienced in keeping it from crippling you. But a lot of times it does just come down to what scares you more. Are you willing to allow the fear to keep you from enjoying your life, from having the satisfaction of being a published author or a recorded musician, or somebody who's done great things for a nonprofit or their church is, maybe you want to get your college degree. Maybe, like me, you're still looking for your life partner. Whatever it may be, the question you have to ask yourself is, are you going to let fear keep you from the happiness, the joy that would come from that ultimate goal? And it still isn't easy. I won't try to claim that it is easy, but a lot of times it is hard. It is easier if you will just remind yourself and kind of maybe picture the scales of, like the scales of justice, or the scales people used to weigh vegetables and stuff on, and put one in one end and one in the other and go, no, I'm not willing to give up my happiness just because everybody is telling me it won't work, just because I've never been successful, just because I'm scared. No, I'm not willing to accept that anymore.
I like the way you put that. In fact, that's brilliant. That's absolutely brilliant. Weighing it up. What is more scary? Because actually sometimes doing nothing is actually a greater fear than actually doing something. It's a bigger risk to do nothing sometimes than it is to actually do the thing.
I don't know. I think for most people, it's easier to stay where you're at than to take the risk and face the fear to go away from where you're already at. I find lots of people who are in situations that they will openly admit to you that aren't great for them, but their attitude will be, oh, what if I try what I want to try and I end up worse off, which is a common fear for a lot of people.
That's a very common question. Very.
Yeah, it's a very common roadblock that keeps people from trying because things aren't great now, but I'm used to them.
Yeah, and so people stay stuck, and I see that. People stay stuck in marriages that are loveless marriages, jobs people really are not fulfilled in doing, but it's okay. It's better than, taking the risk of being on their own or being, leaving the relationship because of the money or the job.
Yeah, I would imagine that in your area of coaching, when you're dealing with relationships on a personal level more often than any other, that you probably see this even more than I do. People who are willing to stay in a marriage or relationship because they worry, what will I be like alone when I haven't been alone in maybe, in some cases, 20, 30, 40 years or more. They haven't been alone.
Yeah, absolutely. And that does keep them in the same place, and it all boils down to this fear. This is fear of the unknown. But none